Nation, it's your man Kevin Gray alongside Mavericks beat writer Tim Cato, Mavericks analyst Bobby Carello. We are DLLS Mavs, your favorite guys, cover your favorite team every single day. Appreciate you joining us here on DLLS Sports. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe while you are here as well. Some things you need to know as the Mavericks get ready to resume their schedule on Friday against the New Orleans Pelicans. Plus, who has the most to gain, the most to prove, and the most to lose coming out of the All-Star break, and some best case, worst case win scenarios as the Mavericks get ready to try to make their playoff push for the final 26 games of the season. Make sure you download, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcast for free. Give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. Gentlemen, hopefully you're staying warm on this wonderful Wednesday. How are we feeling today?
Doing lovely. Definitely warm. It is warm inside. Hope everybody's heaters are doing okay.
It is cold. I confirmed it myself this morning. But it doesn't seem to be as bad as we thought. Maybe that'll also carry over to the basketball team.
Should we become a weather podcast?
I think we should.
WHTR.
That's not how you spell weather.
I don't think that's how that goes.
That's the acronym that we
No,
use.
that's not.
No.
No, you gotta flip the T and the H, man.
Well,
yeah.
Did I say it wrong?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's why we're not that.
Yeah.
No, that's not why we do the weather here on the DLLS Mavs podcast. Good to have our guy Tim Cato.
SELG.
That's right. That's right. Not our forte, clearly, on this show. Shout out to our guy Tim Cato back with us here on the DLLS Mavs podcast after enjoying some time off, just in time to welcome in Moses Brown back to the Dallas Mavericks. We'll get into that a little bit later on in the show as well when we discuss some of the things that could be coming up free agency wise and for the Mavericks summer outlook going into this upcoming summer. But gentlemen, let's jump into it as the NBA resumes its schedule tonight. The Charlotte Hornets will be visiting Luka Doncic and the Los Angeles Lakers. The Mavericks will be back on the floor on Friday night when they welcome in Zion Williamson and the New Orleans Pelicans before they go on the road to take on the Warriors and the aforementioned Luka Doncic and the Los Angeles Lakers coming up this coming Tuesday. But there are some things, Bobby, that we need to watch for the Dallas Mavericks going into this post-All-Star break schedule with 26 games left. A team that's 8th in the Western Conference right now, trying to get themselves into the top 6, but dealing with some significant injuries. What are some things that we need to start watching for as the Mavericks get ready to resume their schedule starting on Friday?
Yeah, so there are a lot of fans that aren't over the Luka trade yet and might never be over it. There are a lot of fans, meanwhile, that would do anything to never talk about Luka or watch people talk about Luka again. But like it or not, there are going to be some games played. The Mavs have 26 games left this season, and with things firing up tonight, I thought it might be a good time to reset a little bit. You know, we've talked over the last couple of weeks about the injuries and about all of the things going wrong, and how this might not be the kind of season that we were hoping for. But there still are some glimmering, shimmering things in the darkness, and I want to shout those out because no matter how hopeless it seems, there's always something to watch in the NBA. So, number one, my guy, our guy, the official mascot of DLLS Mavs, Max Christie, very, very fired up to watch him continue to play. He's now scored at least 15 points in 7 straight games. That's a career long. As a Mav, he's averaging over 17 points and 5 rebounds per game, 3.5 assists per game as well. Shooting it great from 3. He's over 45% from 3. I expect all of those numbers probably to drop a little bit, but he's going to be getting minutes, touches, role, responsibility, even if the guys that are currently healthy stay healthy the rest of the way. He doesn't need Kyrie or Clay to get hurt to get more minutes. I think he's already kind of established himself as a legit starter on a team with playoff aspirations. what I'm watching for from him is not just can he sustain what he's doing, but is there something even a little more? I think that's like more on the optimistic end. But even if he is just a 15 to 18 point per game player, which is, I'm not sure that he's that, but if he is, then holy moly, he's 21, 22 years old, under control for a few more years after this one. And it's like, man, the Mavs might have something here.
What if he's the best player in this trade?
Who can say, honestly? Who can say?
I mean, the early returns are it's the Max Christie trade at this point, who just celebrated a birthday, who turned 22 last week. So far, he's produced in the role that he's been asked to play in and done so with a poise for a young man that is really surprised, I think, a lot of Mavericks fans, and maybe to the surprise of the organization in and of itself, the way that he's played. So Max Christie, El DeBard, shout out to you, my guy, because you were playing some basketball.
What's interesting is, he's tripled the number of 2-point shots he's taking, and he's looked so comfortable, with these little turnaround jumpers and what he's doing in the lane. He's someone who trained with Mike Procopio, who used to be a Mavericks assistant. Yeah. And I believe it is Mike who said, there's not a lot of players who get to take double-digit shots any given game. You have to be ready to take the shots you're able to get. And in LA, there really wasn't more shots for him to take, especially with Austin Reeves, kind of filling in whenever LeBron wasn't on the floor. It's not inconceivable that he has more 2-point ability, more 2-point, success and skill that he just wasn't able to show yet, and that's what he's shown so far in Dallas. We'll see whether that's something that's sustainable, whether he keeps it going. I think that's what's so interesting to watch. But for a young player, especially, it's not ridiculous to think that, they just needed a little bit of opportunity to show that they had a bit more to their game. I think that's really, it's what you said, Bobby, but it's kind of my perspective on what I'm watching from Christie to close out this season.
Number 2 on this list of 5 things. There's way more than 5, but this is just the second top one. PJ Washington. He might be playing some center. Now, I was looking at his basketball reference page, and there's a little tab on here called Position Estimate, where I honestly don't know if it's just a robot doing it or if there's a little position elf sitting somewhere scribbling down all the players on the floor at all times. But during the 21-22 season in Charlotte, Washington apparently spent 53% of his minutes playing center, which I don't know if I believe. And the year before, he's at 46%, which I also don't know if I believe. But who knows? Maybe it's true. I'm not going to go back and find out. But since coming to Dallas, early this year so far, he's only played 3% of his minutes at center. Since coming to Dallas last year, he only played 2% of his minutes at center. I imagine, given the vast injury concerns at center, the long-term absences that we expect from those guys, I expect PJ is going to be playing 40 or 50%, maybe even more of his minutes at center the rest of the way. And I think on a really good team in a playoff situation against certain kind of opposition, including the ones right up the road, him at center could be a pretty viable option. So I think if nothing else, even if it's in a losing effort, him getting more experience playing the 5 in a really wing-heavy situation in Dallas could be something to hang on to for next year.
And good thing for Washington, he's averaging over 8 rebounds per game this year, which is a career high. He's been a monster on the boards and will have to continue to be to provide this team as much rebounding as it can with the lack of size going forward, Tim, because without it, it's going to be difficult night in and night out to rebound the basketball at the kind of rate that they'll need to create some extra possessions. But Washington's done a really good job of that so far this year as a rebounder for this team.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously the non-big who's most suited for that role to kind of slide in and just play big and play bigger. That's the main thing. It's not that he needs to be, a Dereck Lively, Daniel Gafford level, shot blocker, rim protector, but he needs to be someone who has some deterrence, that when someone is driving to the rim, the sight or the idea that PJ is in the vicinity at least makes them think. And I think there's no one on the team who does that more than PJ. Looking forward to seeing how that goes. Honestly, it's been something, and obviously this is, he's going to be playing it out of necessity, and the situation that caused it is not ideal. But ever since he was traded, I've been super curious to see more PJ at the 5 lineups and how they work. And we only got a few instances of really looking at that last year, and certainly have seen it a little bit more, this season. But I think he's certainly best suited for it, and his return will help a lot.
It could be right out of the gate, hopefully. Jeez. Okay, number 3. A lot of guys are playing for their career. This is something that even in the absolute doldrums in Mavs history, 2016, 2017, 2018, a couple years there where the team was awful. There was no Luka. There was kind of no direction. It was not entirely clear what was going on or what the hope was. A lot of guys came through on 10 days. A lot of guys came through on minimum deals, and some of them forged careers for themselves. Guys like Dorian Finney-Smith, Yogi Ferrell stuck around for a long time. There were a few others, but that is kind of the situation that some of the Mavs, maybe not their young players necessarily, but certainly a lot of their veterans are facing. So Dante Exum, free agent after this year. What kind of contract is he going to get, if any at all? Spencer Dinwiddie, same thing. What kind of contract is he going to get, if any at all? And then there are a couple younger players on 2-way deals, Kessler Edwards and Brandon Williams, who have both had some flashes. I feel like Edwards has been really good the last couple games. Brandon Williams was excellent in that game against the Warriors. And then Omax Prosper, a couple weeks ago, it feels like we were talking about, man, is Omax even going to be on the team? Like, is he going to be in the NBA in 2026? And now it's like, oh my God, like he's like careering every single night, playing out of position. And so whenever you get a little bit of desperation combined with a lot of opportunity for some of these guys that are going to be getting more minutes than they thought, even if they're out of position, they are going to get a lot of chances to make impressions on people. And so that's something that I'm watching from those guys.
Yeah. Jaden Hardy, another name in there.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I think the die might have already been cast for Jaden, but we'll see. I mean, all it takes is one Kyrie ankle sprain and Jaden's right back in there. So we'll see.
Kessler Edwards, go get him.
Yeah. Got to burn through the next ones a little quickly here. But number 4, Jason Kidd's coaching. We've mentioned it already a little bit. They're going to have to change the system. They already have changed the offensive philosophy, without kind of the 2 guards playing off each other, a lot of ISO heavy stuff. The Mavs have incorporated a lot of off ball action. They're moving it a little more. It feels like they're posting up less. Obviously, they have much less size, so it's a lot more drive and kick, repenetrate. They're almost playing, kind of like OKC or Memphis, like just a lot of attacking the rim. And then defensively, how is he able to, construct schemes against teams with big dudes to find a way to at least hopefully hold their own, if not neutralize those guys. They did pretty well for stretches of the Kings game before losing. And then in all 4 other games they've played since the deadline, they've won, despite being at a disadvantage. So, J Kidd's got an opportunity to show a lot of stuff, and I'm really curious to see how their offense continues to evolve. And then finally, be remiss if we didn't say, we get to watch Kyrie Irving play for the rest of the season, and that's pretty dang cool. I'm sure we're going to talk about his contract situation later in the show, so we don't need to get into that, but he's got some stuff on the line personally. But then also, we just get to watch him. He's the unquestioned leader of the team now. He's the loudest voice. He's their most important player that's on the floor. And even when AD comes back, he might be their most important player. Even when AD's out there, who knows? But Kyrie is the guy now for the rest of the season, and how he embraces that role, how he performs that role is going to be something obviously that I'm really looking forward to watching.
He's one of my favorite Australians. I've always said this.
Top tier Aussie player, that is Kyrie Irving. To the point real quick about Jason Kidd. Yeah, we're going to find out how good of a coach Jason Kidd really is over the next 26 games.
We're already finding out.
I mean, we found out that the first 56 that he's been able to hold things together as best as he can given the situation that he's dealing with. But now with the injury situation as dire as it is, as far as his big men are concerned, we're going to really find out how good Jason Kidd is, especially on the defensive end with the amount of shuffling in and out of the lineup he's going to have to do with his guys. So looking forward to seeing what he could do there. Because otherwise it's going to be a little bit more difficult. But there's a lot of positive things to look forward to. I think Max Christie has given a lot of Mavericks fans some hope, even with the trade, that he is going to be a player for years to come that can really be able to solidify his role for this team going forward. So shout out to Max Christie and these guys who are continuing to fight as they did through the first 56 games. Will need to do so going forward in the final 26 of the season. Coming up next here on the DLLS Mavs podcast, we're going to enter Cato's corner, some best case, worst case win scenarios for this team as they make the final push in the last 26 games and what that means for their playoff chances. A little bit later on in our show, some Maverick superlatives in terms of who has the most to gain, the most to lose, and the most to prove for this team. All that and more coming up next on the DLLS Mavs podcast.
But first, let me tell you a little bit about Sleeper. It's the best fantasy league platform out there, but you can also put your ball knowledge to the test every single night by picking whether your favorite or least favorite players will have more or less than their projected stats. With Sleeper, the more picks you combine, the more you can win, all the way up to 100 times your money. Every single Mavs game, I'm putting together a pick to click. Sometimes I win, sometimes I don't, but every single time I learn. Sleeper also keeps you in the loop with instant alerts for breaking news and major injuries, so you can stay ahead of the game and keep track of league updates in real time. It's very important, especially if you're a Mavs fan. You literally never know who's going to play, who's going to be in, who's going to be out. If you think you have what it takes, new users can download the Sleeper app and use the code DLLS Mavs to get $55 in free entries when you place a $5 contest. You can apply to any contest. It doesn't have to be your first. Terms and conditions apply. See Sleeper's terms of use for details. Currently operational in over 25 states, including Texas. Check out Sleeper today.
Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company offering a world-class product rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. Their shades have durable frames and crystal clear optics, making them the perfect choice for all outdoor adventures. They have hundreds of options to choose from, so you're bound to find the perfect pair to match your style. Probably have a style in your favorite team's colors. What I also love about Shady Rays is, their lost and broken guarantee. It's the most insane protection in all of eyewear. If your shades ever go missing or take an unexpected hit, don't sweat it. And if you don't love your shades, exchange them for a new pair. Return worry-free within 30 days. There's no risk when you shop. Their team always has your back with personal and fast support. Exclusively for our listeners, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code DLLS for 35% off polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people.
Mavs best
like 5 zeros real quick, like 3, like 35, like 300,000.
I was gonna joke that is everybody reviewing them is the Mavericks injured players.
Solid point. Solid point.
Yeah, but I think they've had more than 300,000 injuries, so
they have.
It wouldn't have been honest or factual. So I chose not to make that as a joke.
And we're all about above board broadcasting and journalism here on the DLLS Mavs podcast, for sure. Mavs best case, worst case win scenarios as the Mavericks play their final 26 games of the season. It's time to hop in to Cato's corner with our guy Tim Cato, our Mavericks beat writer here. You can find him on X at Tim_Cato. As Tim, this team through 56 games, 30-26, are going to have to do some heavy lifting over the final 26 to get themselves into the top 6. What are you looking at in terms of what the best case, worst case could be given this team situation on a lot of fronts, particularly on the injury one going forward here?
Yeah, 26 games remaining. Dallas is currently they're 30-26, just to completely reset. They're in the 8th seed. They're 2 games behind the Clippers. The Clippers have the 6th seed. I'm just going to say right now that Dallas can put aside any notion or thought, in all likelihood, that they're going to make it into the top 6. They would need to, win more games than the Clippers, make up that 2-game, difference. The Clippers also have games in hand. And it's just, it's not a realistic, I just don't think it's a realistic scenario. So what Dallas really, where Dallas really needs to be looking is, at the Phoenix Suns, at the Warriors, at the Kings, Potentially at the Spurs. The Spurs at this point are 5 games back. They also have games in hand on Dallas. 5 games is, even if things really start clicking with De'Aaron Fox there, 5 games would be tough, to overcome at this point of the season. But it's plausible depending on how things go. So I think the way I see it is, I'm curious what you guys think. Like, what is the absolute best case scenario for 26 games, most of them played without big men? Like what is the highest number you guys could even see?
I mean, if they're within 5 games of 500, I think that is an incredible feat, to be honest with you. I mean, I know that they have one of the easiest schedules in the final 26 games of the season, but the unsustainability of playing without real legitimate big men is going to be very difficult for this team to win games night in and night out. So best case scenario for me is they play 500 ball. If they're within 5 games of 500, I think that's a pretty good feat for them given their situation.
Yeah, everything always depends on when you play teams, right? Like, the Mavs have 2 games against the Clippers, like pretty close to the end of the season. They're going to have to contend not only with potentially Kawhi Leonard, but also with the Wall. But Kawhi might not play those games. You just don't know. If he's out there, ostensibly they become a lot tougher. If he's not, who knows? And by then, maybe Anthony Davis will be back. Maybe he won't. Maybe Dereck Lively will be back. Maybe he won't. So there's so many questions up in the air all the time. But what is not up in the air is the Mavs' easiest games left. So they play against the Pelicans, the Hornets, the Raptors, the Nets twice, the Sixers, and the Bulls. That's 7 games against teams that are very, very bad, at least in the standings. The Pelicans and the Sixers are healthier now, but a lot of those games come at home. If the Mavs can win a lot of those, or if the Mavs can win all of those, and then win a few games that maybe they shouldn't, then you're already going to be 500 at the end of the year. And that's without, reinforcements coming or not. So I could see a scenario where they could play close to 500 ball the rest of the way. And that would probably be good enough to get at least into the play. And by then, hopefully you're healthy.
I think 11 and 15, which would put them at exactly a 500 record on the season. It seems like, it feels like that would be good enough. And so you look at the schedule and you say, okay, 7-ish games against, beatable opponents, even in this current state that the team's in. And then you just got to go find 4 or 5 more, or maybe you drop one of those 7 games. And so it's 6-1 in those games. And if you can get 6 more wins, I think Dallas should have total confidence that they are at least a play-in team. Now, that's probably putting you in the 9th or 10th seed. You're probably going to have to win twice to even get to the first round. The Kings and the Warriors, the 2 teams beneath Dallas right now, they're playing about 500 basketball. Like, they're on pace to get 41 or 42-ish wins. And So I really think, like 12 and 14, if that's doable from Dallas, you feel pretty good. The question is, like just playing twice. I think Dallas, under, pretty much every circumstance, really wants to be 7th or 8th. And that's just tough. Like, you don't want that first round matchup. You don't want to win twice and then be matched up against the Thunder. It's just not a good scenario for really, having a successful season. And obviously, this is not a season that, has gone according to plan really in any way. But that's what you have to deal with. That's like the realistic outlook that you have to kind of huddle up and figure out.
And Luke makes a good point in the chat. Tim, he says those 4 games versus LA teams will be crucial. The Mavs also play the Lakers twice. And, now that once you get further and further into the schedule, the number of possible outcomes shrinks like considerably. So it's really all of these head-to-head games, the 2 against the Lakers, the 2 against the Clippers. I think the Mavs have the Warriors one more time. They have the Suns one more time. Like, all of those head-to-heads. They have the Spurs, I think, twice, or is it just once? I can't remember.
They have them twice.
Those head-to-heads become so important because tiebreakers matter. But also, a win for you is a loss for them. I mean, which is the most obvious thing ever. But like those other teams only have 20 something games left too. So if every game really does count, imagine the ones that count double. So
you can't control when the other team loses
all the goods, but then can beat some of those head-to-head teams. And there you go. You don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah, you can't control another team's results unless you're playing them. So it's the only way you can guarantee, those losses, and that's why those jump out so much. The two. What's funny is the San Antonio and the Clippers are both going to be baseball, our beloved baseball series.
That's right.
You got that in March, and you've got that in April. And if you're San Antonio, you're also looking at it and saying this is a wounded animal, and the Spurs probably feel like they're much better than their record after the trade deadline, and they have a chance to prove it. So if San Antonio were to and San Antonio gets those games at home, if they come out and win both of those, all of a sudden that's where things start to get nervous. That's where things get very, very nervy. If Dallas can't get, I think they need, they got to get like 5 wins in March. Rest of 5 or 6, rest of February into March. And then by April, when you have those 2 games against the Clippers, when you face, the Lakers at home, when Luka returns, and that's going to be, dramatic and, pomp and circumstance everywhere. That's when you're maybe getting at least some big men back, like you're finally starting to look a little bit healthier. maybe. But that's, to set them up well for, what it's going to be, 6 final games versus Atlanta, 2 games against the Clippers, Luka's home return, and then another home game against the Raptors, and then you go visit Memphis. If you're Dallas and you're starting to get healthy, you feel good about going like 5-1 in that stretch. But you got to have 37 wins to start April. 7 more over the next 20. It's not doesn't sound that hard when you put it that way. Just 7 of 20.
I mean, honestly, the stretch I'm looking at starts on March 1st. On March 1st, because right now it's February 19th. At the beginning of March, you've got games against Milwaukee, Sacramento, back on the road against Milwaukee, Memphis, Phoenix, 2 games against San Antonio, at Houston, then home against the Sixers, and then on the road against the Pacers. That is March 1st through the 19th. That stretch right there is, while they got a pretty easy schedule based off of the teams they've got, that stretch between March 1st and March 19th is not an easy one at all. The Pacers are playing terrific basketball right now. We know that Memphis is still trying to keep themselves in the top 4 as far as the West is concerned. Tim, you mentioned what San Antonio is trying to do as well. And then Bobby's Bucks, you get to see them twice in the matter of a week, less than a week, once at home and then once on the road. And we know what Milwaukee's trying to do. So that stretch between March 1st and March 19th, I think is going to be crucial for them to maybe pick up a win or 2 that they weren't necessarily expecting. But you got to win the games that you're able to, because, that's going to be tough in those first 19 days of March.
Yeah, and that stretch features a lot of teams that have good big men. I count Giannis as a big. I mean, he plays like big. It's a lot of teams where it'd be great to have AD or Lively or anybody, but also a lot of those teams have really dynamic guards too. Like, who for this team is going to step up and embrace the challenge of guarding Dame Lillard? Who is going to step up and guard De'Aaron Fox? Who can stop Tyrese Halliburton? We remember what happened the last time the Mavs.
Tyrese Maxey.
they had like 500 layups in the fourth quarter. It was. I mean, we were beside ourselves on the post-game show. So, whether that's Max Christie or the recently returned Dante Exum, or maybe Kyrie just has to dig even deeper and do that as well as score 30 a game. Like, I don't know, but there's a lot of challenges that aren't just related to the big men that they're going to have to solve.
Yeah, and it's going to be, without having those centers, everything, like, the perspective completely changes. If you're playing Miami and Bam Adebayo isn't out there, you might be able to get a win like Dallas did, with a kind of ghost ship, third team roster, running out the JV boys. But, Dallas on Friday, they return against the Pelicans. They've got a game against the Pelicans. And, if this team was healthy, even though the Pelicans are healthier, that is a game you can win. That is a game the team would be fully confident to win. But if Friday arrives and Dallas just literally cannot stop Zion Williamson inside because they don't have the size to do it, at some point, even games like that, even games that normally in any other context would be seen as Dallas should go win this, Dallas can win this, Dallas is the better team, there may just be matchup disadvantages that are, completely unsolvable. There's nothing you can do, when all these big men are hurt. And so, it's going to be kind of on a game-to-game basis. And like you said, Bobby, timing is everything, when you face these teams, including, like the Miami example. Sometimes the team just isn't going to have some players. And, what seems not winnable on paper is going to, look differently when you're actually playing in it.
Let's take our next break here on the DLLS Mavs podcast. When we come back, some Mavericks post All-Star break superlatives. Who has the most to gain, the most to lose, and the most to prove? And a little bit later on, does Kyrie Irving have the most leverage of any free agent going into this summer? We'll discuss that and more coming up next on the DLLS Mavs podcast. But first, let me talk to you about Game Time. If you love going to concerts, sporting events, anything that you love going to, you got to use Game Time to get your tickets. Game Time picks filters out the fluff to show you incredible deals only on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets to find the best value. I use Game Time to get my tickets to WrestleMania on April 19th and 20th at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. I was able to use the all-in pricing, so I knew exactly what I was going to pay before I purchased my tickets, and they've got panoramic seat view, so I knew exactly where I was going to sit before I purchased my tickets as well. With Game Time, they got the lowest price guarantee, or they will credit you 110% of the difference. So take the guesswork out of buying your tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code DLLS for $20 off your first purchase. Remember, terms apply. Again, create an account and use code DLLS for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Lowest price guarantee for your last minute ticket. Shout out to Game Time.
Get fitted out with the best sports gear around with FOCO. FOCO has hoodies, shoes, signs, bobbleheads, and everything in between. If you're going to a basketball or a hockey game, show off your love with a team-branded friendship bracelet. Whether it's jackets, beachwear, or even overalls, there's something for fans for almost every occasion. Trying to think of what occasion you would need team-branded overalls. Tailgate, I would assume.
Any.
That's true. That's true. Set decorations. FOCO has even donated some awesome pieces for our sets, which we are not at, but we're still very thankful for them, and we will be back on set soon. So go show them some love. Check out FOCO.com or click the link in the description below. For all non-presale items, use promo code DLLS10 for 10% off.
I got a pair of FOCO Crocs on my feet right now as we speak, as I sit in my office here.
Are they warm?
They are very warm.
Let's see them.
You want me to take my shoe off and show you? No, I'm not going to do that.
No.
I mean,
no, I
can't
get
a
the angle at which I'm sitting at my desk, I can't necessarily, prop my foot up, because otherwise all this stuff get toppled over here.
Send us a super chat if you'd like to see Kevin's feet.
Oh, what?
Logging in right now.
No, we're not. We're not having
price high enough. We'll make something happen.
No, we're not doing that.
Y'all wear socks when you're around the house, or are you just barefoot? Or are you
always socks? Yeah,
almost always socks. Right now, not any with my Crocs because they're very warm. Actually,
got slippers on.
I'm a sock wearer.
Okay, there you go. If somebody sends it $100 super chat, I will show my Cowboys Croc on the show.
Hey.
I'll take it and show it if you so dare to do that. Let's get into some.
For the record, he said Croc, not crack.
That's exactly what I said. Thank you, Tim, for the.
I'll do that for.
Just want to make sure there's no confusion.
Oh, you'll do that for 100. Let's get into some Maverick superlatives here on the DLLS Mavs podcast. Who's got the most to gain, the most to lose, and the most to prove in the final 26 games of the season? Mavericks get back on the floor on Friday night when they welcome in Zion Williamson and the New Orleans Pelicans. Hopefully, PJ Washington will be back on the floor for the Dallas Mavericks, as he's been dealing with the ankle sprain. And yes, Smoke Show, I have the furry Crocs is what I have on my feet, is what I have right now. Cowboys branded as well. So let's get into it, gentlemen. Who has the most to gain in the final 26 games of the season for the Dallas Mavericks as they look to make that playoff push in the West? Tim, I'll start with you.
I'm going to say Dante Exum. We've talked about him a little bit on the show already, but a lot to gain, a lot to prove, just in terms of his NBA career and his future and where it goes from here. I think he's shown and done enough that there will be a market for him, whether it's Dallas or somewhere else. But how big of a market, whether teams are willing to view him as something a bit more than a veteran minimum, I think that's obviously something that is very important to him. And then, it's very important on the court. Dallas still needs to, find some playmaking, especially when Kyrie is not in the game, or, if God forbid he has to miss a little bit more time for any reason. Dante Exum's importance just soars. So that's the guy I've got for this one.
For the sake of sports disagreement, because I think my answer would be Dante as well, I'm going to go with a tie between Kessler Edwards, who I believe is after this season no longer eligible for a two-way contract, and Omax, who after this season has one more year left on his rookie contract. They will have to, within about 8 months from now, decide whether they want to pick up his fourth-year option on his rookie contract. And then after next season becomes extension eligible. So both of these guys presumably are going to play a lot of minutes down the stretch. Kessler Edwards, it's kind of now or never. Are you going to get a contract? Are you going to get more than the minimum? Are you going to be more than a year-to-year guy in the NBA? I think if he keeps playing like this, he can land a multi-year deal with a lot of guaranteed money. A lot is relative. I'm not saying he's going to get $50 million or whatever, but like for a guy that's kind of been a wanderer, a journeyman, that could change his life. And then Omax, if you keep playing like this, not only are you going to get that option picked up, but also you'll be a part of the rotation next year, and then you might get extended, or you're going to make a lot of money at the other side of this deal. So I think both of those guys, are facing different questions than Dante, but like we talked about in the first segment, I think all three of those guys have a lot to prove and a lot to gain based on the opportunities they're going to get.
I'm going to go with Jason Kidd on this one. I'll take it to the head coach who's got the most to gain during the final 26 games of the year. We mentioned a little bit earlier the job that he's going to have to do with the amount of guys that are dealing with injury and the creativity that he's going to have to utilize in the lineup. Tim, you mentioned it, last week. The amount of starting lineups this team potentially could be playing for the rest of the year could break a record. So Jason Kidd is going to have to get a number of guys prepared night in and night out to play. And if he's able to get this team to play 500 ball, they will secure a spot at least in the play-in and give themselves a chance to get their guys back healthy. And who knows what could happen from there. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Jason Kidd on this one, who's got the most to gain in the final 26 games of the season. So we'll see what happens for Kidd going forward from there. Let's move to our next one then. Who's got the most to prove in the final 26 games of the season when it comes to the Dallas Mavericks? Bobby, I'll start with you on this one.
I think man, I'm just going to follow my gut on this one, KG. Spencer Dinwiddie. You got a lot to prove. I think the last few games, I would have expected whenever Exum came back, I would have expected Spencer to kind of retain his role as that primary other guard. But all of a sudden now it's like Max Christie's playing great. Clay is still around. Dante Exum has now strung a couple really nice games together in a row, including his masterpiece really against Miami. To the point where in the second half of some of these games, Dinwiddie was almost getting DNP'd, and Jaden Hardy already is getting DNP'd. So, there's clearly a hierarchy forming. It's Kyrie and then it's everybody else, but Max is creeping up, Clay's creeping up, Dante's creeping up. All of a sudden now Dinwiddie is like, I thought I was supposed to be the second or third guard, and now I'm like the fifth guard on a team with five. So I think he's got something to prove. Do you want minutes? Are you going to be able to earn those minutes and keep them? Because you have some competition that maybe we didn't expect in the wake of the trade.
I'll go with Kyrie Irving, and I wouldn't say that it was his, it wasn't his decision to be put in the situation where he has all this to prove. He wasn't the guy who traded Luka Doncic, but what Dallas was doing in that trade was making a bet that Kyrie, as the primary lead playmaking guard, as this generational creative talent, that he would be able to do this by himself. And that is kind of, that remains the question. Even when Anthony Davis is back, he does help the offense, and he does have another, the offense has another outlet it can run through. He takes some pressure off. He certainly is a very, he's a great scorer, but he's not a guard. He's not the guard who's going to be leading this offense, every single possession when it matters. And yeah, that's kind of the bet, or the choice Dallas made in making the Luka trade, is that Kyrie can do it. And to be clear, he's given us no reason so far to think he can't. But it's a lot to ask. And so that's where I am landing on the most approve. Even if, again, it is not his choice, or not a situation he chose for himself. But it is something that he's got to prove one way or the other to see if Dallas is right.
Shout out to TJKTV in the chat as well. See you all in there, including Ardell and some of our other folks that are in there as well. Appreciate you joining us here on the show. I'm gonna go with F.M. Said in the chat. I'm going to go with Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson, you got a chance over the next 26 games, my guy, to continue to play at a decent rate, especially knocking down threes. It's going to be hard for this team to score points at times. Kyrie Irving going to be the primary scorer and facilitator on this team. Klay Thompson's got to knock down some shots to keep defenses honest, to provide them some balance in terms of the scoring on this team. And I think Klay Thompson will have the chance to do that in the final 26 games. They brought him over to be the guy that knocks down open opportunities when he has them. He'll need to do it and do it at a pretty good rate. He's shooting, over 39% from three so far this year. He's got to be able to be kind of that secondary scorer alongside Kyrie Irving to really generate some shots, knock down some shots that are generated from Kyrie from the 3-point line. So I'm gonna go with Klay Thompson with the most to prove in the final 26 games, because they're gonna need his shooting and his scoring to be able to be there to help them win some of these games down the stretch. Which gets us to our last one here in this segment when it comes to who has the most to gain, the most to prove, and gentlemen, who has the most to lose in the final 26 games of the season as the Mavericks try to make this playoff push. We'll go in reverse it, Bobby. We'll start with you on this one again.
Well, the last time that I was asked who has the most to lose was about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago. I said Daniel Gafford, and he ended up having like the run of his life before his season was ruined by some dude trying to fight through a screen. I'm not sure that I can think of a player for this. I think the people that have the most to lose is the Mavs front office.
There you go.
If this thing falls apart, I think it would be one thing if, they were healthy and losing, because then it's like, what a disaster. It's another thing if they were just really unlucky with injuries, because you could sort of hand wave it away and say, we just got unlucky. But where they are is kind of right in the middle. It's almost like part of it is bad luck, but then part of it is also kind of like, what you're signing up for when you put together an aging team and make the trade that they did at the time they did it. And so this could really backfire. And I mean, Tim, you've written extensively about kind of the business side of it, losing TV subs, losing ticket sales. Like, this could be a massive hurdle for the team. And, also public opinion is souring on gambling as a result of this. Like, there's a lot of implications with ownership and management and stuff. So, we'll see. I'm not sure that if they miss the playoffs, anything happens. But you can bet your bottom dollar if they don't win the title next year, the year after, there are going to be some changes.
Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at as well. I mean, I'll if you want to put, Anthony Davis, again, through no fault of his own, by none of his own autonomy, would kind of be the face of this. And so most to lose, Anthony Davis. And that's a really unfortunate situation that he has to be in. Obviously, one that if the team wins is going to look differently. But if he ends up being rolled out for the season, if he's not able to return, if the season goes awry, again, it's not his fault. He didn't ask for, he didn't orchestrate or mastermind, if you can say mastermind. He didn't orchestrate this trade, but he's the new star. And if this season goes poorly, there's going to be even more expectations and focus. And and just oxygen spent on what's going to happen next year.
Yeah, for me, it's Nico Harrison. I mean, all of this is at his doorstep. He made the decision to bring in Anthony Davis. He decided to move on from Luka Doncic, and now he's going to be the face of this trade for years to come, and whether or not it works and culminates in winning a championship. And if it does not work, and Anthony Davis, for example, is not able to return this season, you've lost already a portion of your window that you self-created in order to try to win a championship. So, yeah, Nico's got the most to lose here, because if this does not go well, this will continue to come at him from a number of angles who have felt that this move wasn't the right one to begin with. So in the final 26 games, he's got to prove, hopefully his guys on the floor will be able to prove him right in some shape or form to be able to make this look somewhat of a decent deal, which no matter what, in a lot of folks' minds, it won't necessarily be the case. Continue to let us know in the chat as well who has the most to gain, the most to prove, and the most to lose as the Mavericks get ready to play their final 26 games of the season, starting on Friday with the Pelicans. When we come back here on the DLLS Mavs podcast, does Kyrie Irving have the most leverage of any free agent this upcoming summer, and the Mavericks make a roster move as well, which we'll dive into? All that and more coming up next on the DLLS Mavs podcast.
But first, I want to shout out the people that have become diehards just since yesterday. How about that? Shout out to Rebecca, Ricky, to Jason and Corey, to Tom, to Joshua, and to John. They have all signed up on I can't do it. I don't think it's possible for me to. It's so far. I'm so far away from. Thank you. Oh my God, I would have been stuck here for the entire 2 minutes trying to figure out how to do that. But you scan the QR code right there, or click the link in the description below, or go to alldlls.com/diehard, where for a limited time only, thanks to Rangers spring training going on, they're battling the flu out there. Hopefully our guy Jeff Wilson, who's on the scene providing you coverage, is going to stay away from that bug. But you can sign up to become a diehard, which is a way to financially support what we're doing here at DLLS Sports and alldlls.com. But it's not just because you're a good person. No, you're going to get a whole lot of stuff when you sign up, including a free shirt right when you do it. And we just rolled out some new St. Paddy's Day merch featuring a leprechaun that I really want to be friends with. That leprechaun knows how to have a good time, and a lot of people in Dallas like to have a good time on St. Paddy's Day. If you're not from around here, St. Patrick's Day is a pretty big day in Dallas. You also get to read the entire website, all the premium paywalled written content on alldls.com from folks like Tim and Jeff Wilson on Rangers, and Clarence and Joe on the Cowboys, and Sam and Sean on the Stars. You also get a discount on any other merch that we offer, and also you get a discount on live events. We have a Cosm watch party coming up for the Stars in a few weeks, and that thing sold out before we even advertised it. Stars fans are true diehards. You don't have to be a diehard to go to any of our live events, but you do get a discount whenever you sign up. And lastly, you get your physical diehard card as well. So shout out to each of you for supporting us, whether you're just watching or whether you're becoming a diehard. Either way, we love you. You love us. You love sports, and you don't care who knows. And let's talk about the sports now.
Who has the most leverage of any free agent this upcoming summer? And is it Kyrie Irving? Plus, the Mavericks make a roster move as we finish up here on the DLLS Mavs podcast. Again, really appreciate all of you joining us here on our show. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to DLLS Sports. Over 17,100 strong in terms of our subscriber count on DLLS Sports. You can download and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcast for free. Give it a 5-star rating and write a review for it while you're there. The Mavericks making a roster move, first reported by our very own Mark Stein, as the Mavericks are going to be planning to sign 7'2" center Moses Brown to a 10-day contract. Of course, Brown spent some time with the Mavericks back in 2021, playing 26 games so far. Been playing in the G League, has been bounced around since that signing back in 2021, I believe. And let me correct me if I'm wrong. Was that Nico Harrison's very first transaction as a Dallas Maverick general manager when he traded for Moses Brown or acquired Moses Brown back in 2021?
Not sure. I honestly don't remember.
I'll have to go back and look, but I feel like that might be the case. But at any rate, Moses Brown is going to be back with this team. Mark Stein also reporting that he's going to be working out with the team, as he says that, as I pull it back up here, I apologize. Moses Brown is auditioning for the Mavericks today in Dallas and is expected to sign this afternoon if all goes to plan. The Mavericks obviously have a massive front court need with Anthony Davis, Dereck Lively II, and Daniel Gafford all sidelined. So that gives you an idea on that. Keith Smith at Keith Smith NBA, salary capologist guru as well, tweeting out that this will use up 10 of the 14 days of salary that Dallas has left under the first apron hard cap. That means the Mavericks won't be able to sign another player until April the 10th. So that gives you an idea on the roster resetting for the Dallas Mavericks. Your thoughts here, guys, real quick on Moses Brown making a return to the Dallas Mavericks for his second stint of duty with this team.
It's fine. Yeah. You needed, Kyler Kelly, the two-way guy clearly has not been trusted by Kid to play, and burning the 10-day now makes as much sense as anything. And Moses Brown has played NBA minutes a lot more than Kyler Kelly, so we'll see if he's able to do anything with them. But it's just necessity for Dallas, and they're going to win the title now because they have Moses Brown.
Well, Bobby, you'll be happy to know that with the Westchester Knicks so far in the G League, Moses Brown averaging 15.6 points per game and 15.1 rebounds per game with the Westchester Knicks so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, he's been productive in the G League throughout his career. He got a lot of time with OKC, whenever they were still they weren't tanking. They totally weren't tanking whenever they were doing this, but whatever they were doing down there, that definitely worked at the time. He got a lot of run with them as well. He was with the Mavs at the start of that 21-22 season and never quite caught on. Had some games with some gaudy stat lines, but they ended up going a different direction. Yeah, I mean, he's super tall. He's really, really freaking tall. And the fact that they're signing him now implies to me that maybe Dwight's not ready right out of the gate, but that he will be back soon, and that they just wanted someone to hold down the fort at least until he's able to come back. And then once you get back, you got Dwight, you got PJ, you got Kessler Edwards, and you can try and make a chicken salad out of a pretty bad situation.
And yes, that was one of the first transactions that Nico Harrison made back in 2021 is the acquisition of Moses Brown. So a little full circle moment for Moses Brown coming back to the Dallas Mavericks. Our guy Mark Stein first reporting that when it comes to the Mavericks signing him to a 10-day contract. Speaking of contracts, Bobby Marks of ESPN putting out a piece today entitled NBA Offseason Questions: The Futures of Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, Trae Young Could Be Decided. And one of the first questions that he has in his piece details which NBA free agents have the most leverage going into this upcoming summer. Bobby Marks talking to a number of NBA executives around the league, posing the question, which NBA free agent has the most leverage this upcoming summer? And from the executives that he talked to, it's your very own Kyrie Irving of the Dallas Mavericks, who, of course, has got a $43 million player option this upcoming summer. If he declines that, gentlemen, he is eligible for a 5-year, $313 million contract this upcoming summer. This is on top of the fact that Anthony Davis will have his 3-year, $176 million contract extension that he signed with the Lakers. That'll kick in this upcoming season as well. Bobby, you've mentioned it before as well, that guys like PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, contract extension eligible at the end of the season as well. But the Kyrie Irving thing jumps out because we've touched on it a little bit as the season has gone on, but as we get now into the final 26 games of the season, this conversation will become much more of a larger discussion, and knowing that Kyrie could potentially get that kind of money is kind of eye-popping, given the fact that he will be 33 years old next month. Actually, Anthony Davis will be 32 next month as well. So each of these guys not only getting older, but potentially, in Kyrie Irving's case, getting that much larger of a bag, Tim Cato.
Yeah. I mean, the leverage he has is pretty obvious. It's for all the reasons we talked about it. To be a championship level team, you have to have a championship level creating guard. You have to have someone on that end. And, So Dallas doesn't really have any other choice but to sign Kyrie to really whatever he is looking for. And, on the last contract 2 years ago, Kyrie did, he didn't sign for the absolute max. Dallas had some leverage. The market wasn't there. I don't know how much the market per se has shifted, and, if Kyrie wanted to go somewhere else, I'm certain there would be teams interested. I don't know how likely it is he wants to go anywhere else. But pretty much if you're Dallas, but just by making this move, and it was kind of felt the same way, so when Kyrie signed the contract 2 years ago, a lot of people argued that who was Dallas bidding against? Why did they give him this deal if nobody else was offering that exact dollar figure? But the leverage Kyrie had to say, hey, pay me, was that Dallas just traded for him. That Dallas came out and, committed to him in the future. And if you were going to go lowball him based off what the market said, what is his desire to be here? Why would he, be committed to this team in that way? You're the ones, Dallas was the ones who traded for him. It really is a very similar situation where Dallas just committed to him being the main, lead offensive player, and, barring some, cap gymnastics that, to fit another big contract, something like that, there's really no reason for Kyrie to go to the Mavericks and think that he deserves anything other than, the max that they can sign him to, because that is what he represents to this team. That's the leverage that he has.
Oh my gosh. The optics, Bobby, of that, signing a guy to a $313 million contract when you weren't willing to give the 25-year-old the $345 million contract. The optics, my gosh.
That's not happening. Like, he's not getting a 5-year contract, and he's not getting $300 million. Like, it's just not going to happen. They're not going to do that. It's just like he can't get it from anyone else. So I disagree that Kyrie has an extraordinary amount of leverage. There's one team this summer that can sign him to a contract outright, and that's the Brooklyn Nets. And I promise you that's not going to happen. Now, he could say, I just don't want to be here. Trade me. All right. I guess that is a considerable amount of leverage, only insofar that he could potentially get a 3-year contract or 4-year contract with someone else. But no team in the NBA is going to, 37-year-olds just don't get 4-year contracts. Like, this is not going to happen. So I don't think that even a 4-year contract is realistic, let alone a 5-year. Now, as far as maximizing the average annual value, for sure, I think that he has the right to ask for that. I'm not sure that he will, and I'm not sure that Dallas would do it because, again, who else is going to do it? So there is kind of like there was a couple years ago whenever they ended up, he ended up taking a little bit of a discount. I think he signed for 3 for $130. He could have got 3 for $150 or something. There was a little more that he could have gotten. Mm-hmm. Maybe he gets pretty close to that, but I don't see a situation where he's able to just grab the org like this and say, give me everything that I want. I just don't think that that's the case because it's such a large number that no team in the NBA that does not have cap space, and the only team that doesn't want him. No team in the NBA could do that. So I think that this is probably quarreling over the difference between what he's making now and 50 or 55 per year or something. But that'll all get settled, I guess, down the line. I'm pretty confident that he's going to stick around and that it won't be for the max, but it'll probably be for quite a bit of cash. And I saw it said that it would be, if it's a 3-year extension, it aligns with AD's contract, and 3 years is what Nico considers to be the future. So I think you can probably pencil in 3 years for somewhere around 150, and we'll see if I'm right or if I have egg on my face like usual.
I do absolutely agree.
Real quick,
go ahead.
Let me thank our television audience for joining us here on the DLLS Mavs Podcast. Fast Channel 59 alert. Thank you, Mark Stein. If you make sure you download and subscribe to our podcast, wherever you get your podcasts for free, go to alldlls.com to become a diehard member as well. And you can also like, comment, and subscribe to DLLS Sports by hitting that subscribe button. We appreciate you joining us. We'll be back tomorrow at 12 p.m. right here on DLLS Sports. I apologize, Tim. Continue. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I agree. It's not going to be a 5-year deal. I think he has leverage to ask for max salary in that space. I also think you're right that it wouldn't surprise me at all if it's somewhere less than that. It will be a pay raise, but it may not be the max just based off situation and circumstance. But I think if Kyrie wanted to ask for the max, I see him as having the ability to ask for that with a straight face. Let's put it that way.
And sure. He's great. He's an all-star. They just went to the finals. Like there's plenty of reason for him to ask for that.
But I 100% agree. Like I would expect it to be a 3-year deal, or 3-year extension, however you want to phrase it. But yeah, that does, overwhelmingly seem like the likeliest outcome here.
Anthony Davis on a 3-year, $176 million contract extension that begins next season. If he signs something similar, that would make sense, as you guys have mentioned, in terms of the timeline that Nico Harrison has created based off of the competitive window that he's looking for. But just the mere idea that Kyrie at 33 years old is in position after everything that has transpired over the last couple of years will be in a position to potentially ask for a $313 million contract is kind of wild given what has happened over the last couple of years for him and this team. But that's exactly the position that he's in going forward for this team. Obviously, there'll be a lot of plans that this team will have to deal with this upcoming summer when it comes to Kyrie's contract, the pending extension that will kick in for Anthony Davis, PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, and others. But they got to get to the final 26 games of this regular season to try and make a push for the playoffs. We will chronicle that, of course, throughout the rest of this season, including when we come back tomorrow at 12 p.m. right here on the DLLS Mavs podcast. And then, of course, on Friday, the Mavericks are back in action when they take on the New Orleans Pelicans. But a lot of things to get to that we'll get to tomorrow here on our show. Really appreciate all of you joining us here on our show today. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to DLLS Sports. Also, visit alldlls.com to become a diehard member as well, and download and subscribe to our podcast wherever you get your podcast for free. That's our Mavericks analyst, Bobby Curl. That's our Mavericks beat writer, Tim Cato. I'm your host, Kevin Gray. We are DLLS Mavs. We'll talk to you tomorrow at 12 p.m. right here on DLLS Sports. Y'all be good. We'll talk to you later. Peace.
We all silly like the mayor.